They're good at it.
Masters of disguise. Alrighty, good afternoon everyone. My name's Meg, we're here at Sea Life Melbourne Aquarium and we're here with Demi today.
Hey everybody.
Happy Mother's Day, by the way. I know it is Mother's Day today, so special mention to my mum. Happy Mother's Day, Mum. But we are going to be talking to you about cuttlefish today. We've got Demi here, she's an absolute expert. I myself work here at Sea Life Melbourne as well in the Marine Education Department, and Demi is one of our aquarists. So Demi, cuttlefish, what can you tell us?
So cuttlefish are what we call cephalopods. They're in the same family as animals like squid and octopus. As we know, they don't have a skeletal structure. We see a lot of these guys up on the beach. This is actually their cuttle bone. It runs down the back of their body and it's pretty much their skeleton.
And they use that for buoyancy, don't they?
Yeah, they do, which is pretty cool.
Yeah.
The other thing that we know about cuttlefish is how they change their colours. So we see it all the time in videos and documentaries. They'll do this as a way of communication. So they can't speak like we do, so they'll use it for things like aggression, finding a mate, even camouflage.
Ooh, look at this display we've got happening here at the moment.
Tiny.
So you can see those arms are up at the front there. And yeah, that's an interesting display happening for us. Great timing.
So as well as changing their colours, they can also change their textures. So you can see it on this guy here, and we've got another one in the corner. They can actually stretch their muscles and their skin and bring up little raised bits to communicate different things to other cuttlefish.
Yeah, and look at that display happening in there at the moment. Great timing. So they've got little papillae underneath their skin, so they can make it raised or smooth, which is really impressive. And I understand they use it in mating displays as well, Demi, as you mentioned.
Yeah, they do. So every year the cuttlefish go through a mating season, and there's actually a really big congregation of them in Whyalla in South Australia. And so every year hundreds of cuttlefish flock to this one area, and they use their colours and their skin textures to find a good mate. And it's usually the bigger, more aggressive males that will get the best females. But what the little males actually do is they change their colour and their texture to look like smaller females, and then they use this to sneak past the big males and actually mate with the females while they're not looking.
Very sneaky.
Pretty sneaky.
Yeah, disguising
really cool.
as a female to get the female. There you go. Works for cuttlefish. That's so great. Now, how are they, being Mother's Day, how do cephalopods and cuttlefish like these actually measure up as mothers?
So they're not the best mothers, but that's okay. So once they mate with the males, they will fertilise the eggs internally, and then they'll lay them in a safe place like a rocky crevice or under a ledge. And basically once they've done this, they have no more contact with their children at all, or the eggs, and they go into what is called senescence. So now that they've reproduced, their life goal is pretty much complete, and they can happily end their life and they just start to die.
But they've achieved their goal, they've reproduced, they've passed on their genetics, and that is their ultimate goal in life, isn't it?
That's just it.
So there you go. I understand their cousins though, like the octopus, can be a little bit better mothers in some instances.
Yeah, so what the octopus will do is they'll lay their eggs, and then they will actually guard those eggs until they hatch, and then they'll go through that senescence process, but not before they've made sure those eggs are safe.
There you go, guarding their eggs with their life. Very cool. Now this cuttlefish is right up towards the front of our exhibit here, and it's actually flashing different colours. You can see the lumps happening all over its body there as well. But it's really weird that they can change colour like this, because from what we've spoken about before, Demi, they don't actually see colour. Exactly.
Yeah, so cuttlefish are actually colourblind, which is really cool. And so what they do to match themselves to their environment or change their colours is they see colours in different shades. So a blue shade is different to red, is different to purple. And so they look at each colour, particularly when they're camouflaging, and they'll say, all right, I need a combination of these shades because I don't know what colour is. And they change their body to look like that.
Amazing. They're masters of disguise without even being able to see the color they're blending into. Really, really fascinating animals. And what kind of things are they eating? What do they eat, our cuttlefish?
So the cuttlefish will primarily feed on what we call crustaceans. So things like prawns, small crabs, and anything with a hard shell. So then they'll bring those animals into their mouth, and they actually have a really hard pointy beak, which is what they'll use to crush those shells, and then they can take the meat out from inside.
Very cool. There you go. And I think we're actually going to be having our cuttlefish fed for us very shortly, which is really awesome. Before we do get them fed, is there anything else you wanted to mention about our lovely cuttlefish? We've talked a bit about their color change, how they can't really see, that amazing congregation that happens in Whyalla every year. So yeah, we've covered a lot of really cool stuff. Yeah. Their lifespan though, unfortunately, not all that long.
No, so they'll live up to 18 months, maybe 2 years, depending on the individual. They can get pretty big, so their mantle, which is their body, will get up to 60 centimetres. So when you think about it, that's this big. That's a third of my height. So that's pretty big.
Yeah, that is pretty tall.
And another fun one, they have 3 hearts and blue blood.
Very cool.
So that's really cool.
Yeah, there you go. Now I'm going to give Simon, who's waiting up above our exhibit here, a quick radio, and I'll get him to feed our wonderful jellyfish.
Cuttlefish.
Cuttlefish. Simon, do you mind feeding the cuttlefish for us? Sorry, too many fish things here. There we go. Tasty prawn going in for the cuttlefish there. Of course,
you can see he's got his front 2 tentacles up, and that's somewhat of like an aggression hunting display. When he goes to feed, they'll stretch out their tentacles really long, almost like they're about to strike, and then I'll just grab that food.
Oh, very cool. And then he'll go and tuck himself away to finish eating it.
2 cuttlefish that we have here. The one that we just ate just then, that is Loki, and our bigger one over here is Thor. I'm a big pop culture fan, for anyone else out there.
So Simon's got the prawn on the end of the pole there, of course keeping his hand out of our harm's way. Oh, very quick movements there, but he missed the prawn.
So those movements that Simon's doing with the prawn, because we obviously don't feed live food, what we try and do with the animals is that we're feeding, we mimic the movements that they would naturally do. So a prawn would swim a little bit and they have quite jerky motions, and the more we mimic those behaviours on the food, the more natural it is for the cuttlefish to then hunt down and chase that food. And you saw that he actually missed it at first. This is a good sort of enrichment for the animals, I suppose. Rather than just giving them the food and they get the same thing every day, we try and change things up a bit, make them chase for the food like they would in the wild, or give them different types of food. It just keeps their brains a bit more active. Amazing.
Well, Demi, it's been wonderful, and thank you so much for answering so many of our questions today.
Right.
I'm sure everybody at home has appreciated them. Yeah, wonderful. Yeah. Thank you so much for that.
Happy Mother's Day to everyone tuning in today. I hope you are staying safe in isolation.
Awesome. Thanks, guys. See you later.